Black Hollow Hill was the kind of place people avoided after sunset. Fog always hung over the narrow road, and crows circled above like they were waiting for something. At the very top stood the Ravencroft mansion, tall, crooked, and forgotten. By time, Clara Reeves, a young journalist from the city, stood at the foot of the hill, staring up at the old house. She had read about it in an old library book, just a short mention, barely 2 lines. The Ravencroft family vanished in 1931. The estate remains untouched. That was enough to catch her interest. She came here to learn the truth. Why did the entire family disappear? Why did the town treat the house like a cursed place? And why had no one told this story in almost 100 years? As she climbed the hill, her boots sank into the soft earth. The silence was heavy, as if even the wind was scared to speak here. When she reached the front gate, Clara paused. The gate creaked open with a slow push, revealing the mansion's tall doors, cracked windows, and ivy-covered walls. But what made her skin crawl was the strange marking burned into the wood above the entrance. It was a circle with a triangle. Inside, and a bleeding eye in the center. She had never seen anything like it. Inside, the house smelled of damp wood and dust. The wallpaper peeled like old skin, and every step echoed too loudly. She pulled out her camera and began filming. In the hallway, she found a dusty photo on the wall. It showed the Ravencroft family. A tall man with sharp eyes, a woman in a long black dress, 3 children, and an old woman seated in a wooden chair. But something was off. The children's faces were scratched out. Clara felt a chill crawl up her neck. As she moved deeper into the house, she noticed locked doors, old symbols carved into wood, and paintings turned backward on the walls. One door had been nailed shut from the outside. Carved into the door were the words, "Keep it in." She didn't try to open it. Instead, she entered what looked like a library. It was filled with rotting books and broken furniture. One book sat in the center of the room, on a pedestal that seemed newer than everything else. The cover was leather, and burned into it was the same symbol from the gate, the eye inside the triangle. She opened the first page. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "We tried to cleanse the evil. We thought fire would work, but it only made it stronger." Suddenly, a soft creaking sound came from upstairs. Clara froze. She waited, listening. Another step, then another. But she knew no one else was in the house. Gripping her flashlight tightly, she climbed the stairs, heart pounding. On the second floor, the air felt colder. Dust floated in the light, and spider webs clung to her sleeves. Then she saw it, a child's room. Everything was untouched. A small bed, a teddy bear with one eye, and a drawing on the wall done in red crayon. The picture showed a group of people around a fire. In the center of the flames was a person, smiling. Clara felt sick. She took a photo of the drawing and left the room. But before she reached the stairs, she noticed a broken mirror. Written in what looked like faded blood were the words, "She still watches." Back in town, Clara visited the local library. Most of the old news from 1931 was missing, burned in a mysterious fire, according to the records. But one yellowed article survived. It read, "Ravencroft family gone. No bodies found. Locals refused to speak." Clara asked the librarian, an old man with cloudy eyes, if he knew anything about the Ravencrofts. His face turned pale. "You shouldn't go up there," he whispered. They were different. They believed in strange things, blood things. They said the hill was alive, that it wanted sacrifices. He wouldn't say more. That night, as Clara reviewed her footage in the motel, she noticed something terrifying. In one of the frames, just for a second, a pale face appeared in the broken mirror behind her. Watching, smiling. She paused the video and zoomed in. It was the same old woman from the family photo. The one in the wooden chair. But she had died. In 1931. Clara didn't sleep that night. Something was terribly wrong with the Ravencroft house. It wasn't just a place of death. It was a place of secrets. And something that never left. And Clara was now a part of its story. Asterisk, the next morning, Clara Reeves woke with dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept much after seeing that ghostly face in her video. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that pale smile in the mirror. Still, she couldn't stop now. She headed to the old town hall, where records from the 1920s and 30s were stored in the basement. It smelled like mold and old paper. The clerk gave her a strange look, but handed over a rusted metal box labeled Ravencroft, Staff and Employment. Inside, Clara found files of the family's house servants' maids, a gardener, a cook, and 2 stable boys. All their files ended the same way. No longer employed, March 3rd, 1931. That was the week before the Ravencrofts disappeared. But what was worse? 3 of them, Mary Alsby, maid, Jonah Pierce, gardener, and Thomas Glenn, stable boy, were also listed as missing persons in a separate police log. No investigations were ever opened. Clara blinked in disbelief. How could so many people vanish and the town stay silent? One name stood out. Agatha Boyle, the cook. She was the only servant who had left the mansion a few months before the disappearances. Her file said she moved to a nearby village called Redwick. Clara decided to find her. Redwick was a small, sleepy place, 1 main road, a few shops, and a church that looked older than anything she had seen. At the edge of town stood a quiet cottage with a white fence and red flowers. Clara knocked. After a long pause, the door opened. A very old woman peeked through. "Yes? Are you Agatha Boyle?" Clara asked softly. The woman's eyes widened. But she didn't answer. "I'm here about the Ravencrofts," Clara continued. "I think you're the last one alive who knew them." Agatha slowly opened the door and stepped aside. "You're either very brave or very stupid, girl." Inside, the air was heavy with herbs and burning candles. Old family photos hung crookedly on the walls. Agatha sat slowly in a rocking chair and stared out the window. "I still hear them sometimes," she whispered. "The screams." Clara sat beside her, notebook in hand. What happened in that house? Agatha took a long breath. They weren't normal. The family, especially the mother, Margaret. She believed the hill was sacred, that it fed on devotion. She held prayers every week, but it wasn't like church. They used their own language, and fire, always fire. Clara leaned forward. The missing staff, did they leave? Or? Agatha shook her head. No one left. They were taken. She paused, voice cracking. They saw the wrong thing, or maybe they heard something. Margaret said they were impure witnesses, that their eyes had seen what was meant only for the faithful. Clara felt her stomach twist. "You said you still hear screams?" "They buried them under the old tree in the orchard," Agatha said, eyes glassy. "But at night, they rise. You don't see them at the house. It moans, like it's remembering." Clara asked one last question. "Why did you leave?" Agatha didn't speak. Instead, she slowly lifted her sleeve, revealing a deep burned scar across her forearm. A perfect triangle. "They marked me for sacrifice," she said, "but I ran before the final ceremony." Clara thanked her and left in silence, heart pounding. Later, that day, Clara returned to the mansion grounds. The orchard Agatha mentioned was still there, but overgrown and twisted. Trees leaned in strange angles. One tree, an old, dying oak, had blackened bark and rotted roots. Clara pulled out a small shovel and began to dig. Just a few inches under the surface, she hit something. Wood. A box. She cleared the dirt. It was a rotting wooden crate, sealed with nails and black wax. She pried it open. Inside were bones. Human bones. But not just that. A torn cloth apron. A name tag. Maria. Clara dropped the lid and stepped back, shaking. She looked around. The trees seemed to lean closer now. Was she being watched? Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A new message. No signal. No number. Just one line. Some things should stay buried. Her hands trembled. This was no longer just a story. It was a warning, and she had just broken a seal that no one was meant to touch. Clara Reeves didn't go back to her motel after finding the buried bones. She drove to a nearby town and stayed in a small inn under a fake name. Her hands still shook when she touched her camera. The box, the bones, the torn apron, all real. She had crossed into something ancient, something evil. That night, she dreamed of fire. And singing. Dozens of voices humming in a strange rhythm, all chanting words she couldn't understand except one, crimson. The next morning, Clara returned to the local archives, this time looking for something specific. Religious movements in the 1800s and early 1900s. The librarian, still uneasy from her last visit, reluctantly handed over a private collection, labeled Unrecognized Faiths and Cult Activity Confidential. At the very back was a thin booklet titled The Crimson Veil, Practices of the Ravencroft Sect. Clara froze. The symbol on the cover was the same as the one carved into the mansion gate and burned into the door inside the triangle. The circle and the bleeding eye. She opened it. The text was old, faded, but still readable. The crimson veil is not a religion. It is a passage. The chosen must feed the flame with pure souls. In return, the veil shall open, and the faithful will cross. When the final offering is made, the family of flame will rise, forever joined. Clara's blood ran cold. The Ravencrofts weren't just part of a family cult. They were leaders of a group that believed they could cross into another realm through fire and blood. And the servants? They were the offerings. Clara scanned the document and drove to the town church to speak with the current priest. He was young, mid-30s, and clearly uncomfortable when she brought up the Ravencrofts. You shouldn't be digging into them, he said quickly. That family... There's a reason the town doesn't talk. Do you know anything about the cult of the Crimson Veil? His eyes widened. He locked the doors behind them. Then, he whispered. That cult was banned by the Holy Council in 1889. They were too dangerous. They practiced soul binding, burned people alive as offerings. And they believed in something called the Red Awakening. Clara leaned forward. What is that? He hesitated. A ceremony. The last ritual before the veil opens. They believed the hill Black Hollow was a gate. That once enough blood was given, the hill would breathe. Clara remembered Agatha's words. The hill wanted sacrifices. Clara returned to the Ravencroft mansion one more time that afternoon. She wanted proof. Something solid. Inside, she went to the basement. Dust fell from the ceiling with every step. The stairs creaked like bones breaking. At the bottom, she found a locked door covered in soot. The keyhole was scorched. She broke the lock with a hammer and stepped inside. What she found wasn't just a room. It was a chapel. Stone walls, with torches still in their mounts. A blood-stained altar, rows of rotting benches, and symbols, hundreds of them scratched into the stone with fingernails. In the center was a book, a ritual book. She opened it. The pages were filled with detailed instructions for preparing human sacrifices. Diagrams showed where to place the witness, how to feed the flame, and even the chants. The last page was dated March 10, 1931, The day the Ravencroft family vanished, it read, "Tonight we cross. No more waiting. The veil will open. The hill will take us. We will be flame eternal." Beneath the words were signatures. Margaret Ravencroft, Edward Ravencroft, all 3 children, and 6 others. Clara's heart stopped when she read the final name. Father Thomas Ellerby, the former priest of the church, a man of God, part of the cult. Suddenly, Clara's flashlight flickered. From the shadows of the chapel, a soft sound rose. Tap, tap, tap. She turned quickly. Nothing. But the air felt thick. Her skin crawled. She didn't wait. Clara grabbed the ritual book and ran upstairs, not daring to look back. But as she stepped out of the house, she saw something new. Something that hadn't been there before. In the dirt, outside the front door, someone or something had drawn a symbol with a stick, a triangle, the circle, the eye, and next to it, her name, Clara. She backed away slowly, heart racing. They knew, whoever or whatever still lived in the Ravencroft shadows. They knew she was getting too close. But she also knew one thing for sure. The Ravencroft family didn't just vanish. They crossed over, and the price was paid in blood. Asterisk. The Ravencroft estate burned for 12 hours, but not a single scream was heard. That night in 1931, people saw the flames from town, but no one called. The fire brigade. No one dared. Most locked their doors and covered their ears, whispering prayers they barely believed in. The townsfolk had always feared the mansion on Black Hollow Hill, and when it finally burned, they said, "Let it burn." But the truth was far more terrifying. And Clara Reeves had just uncovered it. Back in her motel room, Clara sat frozen in front of her laptop. The old ritual book from the hidden chapel lay open beside her, its blackened pages crackling softly under the fan. She had scanned every word, every symbol, and every signature. The last entry before the fire simply said, "Tonight, we offer everything." She needed answers, real ones. Clara drove to the county fire station and requested the incident. Report from March 10, 1931. The young clerk was confused. "We don't have any record of that fire," he said. "It's as if it never happened." But Clara didn't give up. She searched through the fire department's storage unit herself, and in a forgotten cardboard box buried under old hose catalogs and rusted equipment, she found it, a scorched report, partially burned, written in shaky handwriting. Flames from basement. Heat too intense to approach. Windows shattered. No bodies recovered. Symbol drawn in ash around the building. Request made to destroy report. Reason: unnatural circumstances. Clara stared at the last line, underlined in red ink. The house burned, but not from fire alone. Determined to find more, she tracked down one last living witness, Eleanor Maves, 98 years old, bedridden, and living in a private care home. At age 4, she lived down the hill from the Ravencroft estate. Clara sat gently at her bedside and showed her the old photo of the family. Eleanor's face twisted with fear. "They sang that night," she whispered. "We all heard it. Then the sky turned red. My papa told us to hide under the table." "Mama!" cried. Clara leaned closer. "Did you see anything else?" Eleanor nodded slowly. "I saw the fire go inward," she said, "not out. It pulled in like it was eating the house. And then, a scream. Not human. It was like the hill itself. Screamed." Clara felt the hairs rise on her arms. She returned to Black Hollow Hill once more. The ruins of the mansion still stood like black bones against the sky. Half the structure was gone, eaten by time and flame, but the basement door remained, sealed. Under a slab of iron, Clara knelt and dusted off the ground. Beneath the ash and dirt, She found them burn marks in the shape of human hands, fingers clawing upward. People had tried to escape from below, but never made it. Near the edge of the hill, Clara noticed something strange, a path she hadn't seen before. Trees had recently shifted, revealing a narrow trail of broken stones leading to a small cabin. Curious, she followed it. The cabin was almost swallowed by vines. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and decay. But on the wall hung a photo. A man in a priest's collar. The same priest who signed the Ravencroft ritual book, Father Thomas Ellerby. He had survived the fire and left a journal. Clara opened the first page. It read, "I write this so the truth may live, even if I do not." The journal detailed that the ritual had succeeded. The family offered themselves willingly. Fire was only the beginning. Something did rise from the veil, something alive, but when it came, it did not accept the offering. It wanted more. Ellerby fled and sealed the chapel, but the hill, it remained hungry. The last line of the journal chilled her to her core. The Ravencrofts did not die in the fire. They crossed, but part of them stayed behind, watching, waiting, still burning. That night, Clara lit a candle beside her bed to keep the dark away. But around midnight, her room filled with the scent of smoke. She woke to find a circle of ash. At her door, inside the circle, written in soot, "The offering is not yet complete." She rushed to the mirror and froze in the reflection behind her. The Ravencroft children stood at the foot of her bed, smiling. Burned. Clara Reeves could still feel their eyes, the ghostly children, their burned faces, that silent smile. Even now, in the daylight, she heard soft footsteps that weren't hers, whispers in the wind, and when she passed mirrors, she didn't look. Too long. She wasn't sure who or what might be looking back. Still, Clara pressed on. She had come too far to turn back. She returned to the Ravencroft ruins at dawn, armed with the ritual book, Father Ellerby's journal, and a single goal: unlock the chapel, sealed beneath the house. The metal door in the basement had always resisted her, but this time she had found something in the journal, a name. Only the true speaker of the flame may call it open. Say her name, and the lock will know you. The name was ancient. Vale Stari. Clara whispered it into the silence. The iron door clicked. And slowly, it opened with a low groan, like the breath of something very old and very hungry. Inside, the hidden chapel was far worse than she remembered. Not just darker. Different. The symbols carved into the walls now glowed faintly red. The air felt thick, like breathing through ash. The altar at the center had grown new roots, black tendrils snaking from its base, pulsing like veins. Clara turned on her recorder. She stepped carefully, her boots brushing loose bones and dried wax. Every time she moved, the faint sound of whispering rose in the shadows. Low voices, speaking in a language not meant for human mouths. At first, she thought it was in her head. But when she reviewed the audio on her device, the whispers were real, and they said her name. Clara found a staircase behind the altar, leading even deeper underground. The steps were slick, carved from stone, and lit by dim torches that had no fire, but still burned. Below was a second room. It looked like a shrine, or maybe a prison. There were 6 wooden chairs in a circle. On each sat a wax figure, life-sized, shaped like the missing servants. Their faces had been sculpted in perfect detail, twisted in terror. Clara's breath caught. On the 7th chair, a plaque read, "The Last Offering." But the seat was empty. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed everything. Clara fumbled for her flashlight, but when she turned it on, it didn't help. Because in the beam stood someone else. A woman, tall and thin, dressed in burnt lace and ash-covered robes. Her face was cracked like porcelain, and her eyes were hollow black voids. Clara stumbled back. The figure raised a bony hand and pointed to the empty chair. The whispers roared now louder, all around her. But not angry, pleading, double quotes complete the circle. She must take her place. Only then will the veil shut. Clara ran. She crashed through the chapel, up the stairs, back into the broken house. She didn't stop until she reached her car. Her heart pounded so loud, she almost didn't hear her phone ring. Unknown number. She answered, breathless. But there was no voice. Just static. And then, a whisper. So soft, it sounded like it came from inside her own skull. You belong to us now. Back at her motel, Clara checked her camera footage. The video was corrupted. Just lines of red and black static. But at the very end, a single frame showed something that made her scream. It was a photo taken from the altar room. The 7 chairs. All of them now filled. And in the 7th chair was her. She threw her camera across the room. It shattered. But then her laptop buzzed on by itself. New file detected. Whispers _and the _chapel.mp4. She didn't open it. She COULDN T. Instead, she stared into the mirror across the room and saw flickering shapes behind her. A red light rising, and a woman in black lace. Watching. Clara realized then the Ravencroft family hadn't just led the cult, they became it. And the house didn't want her to find the truth. It wanted her to finish the ritual. To take her place in the circle. To complete the veil. Clara Reeves didn't know how she got home. She remembered running, driving, crying, but not the road itself, not the time. It was like something had pushed her out of the chapel just to let her breathe. For now, but something had followed. The shadows in her apartment moved too much. Her mirrors fogged without reason. Her phone glitched every night at exactly 3:33 a.m. And someone kept sending her one message again and again. Finish it. Clara had only one lead left. A name. It came from the fire chief's old report, scribbled in red pen at the bottom as a note. Edwin Ravencroft survived. New identity sealed by court. Possible descendants still active in town politics. She had missed it before. But now, she couldn't ignore it. She started searching town records from the 1940s forward names, birth certificates, and land deeds. And finally, it hit her. Mayor Douglas Wren. His family had owned the land that the Ravencroft estate was built on. His grandmother's name? Elaine Ravencroft. He wasn't just a local leader. He was a blood heir. Clara confronted him during a charity event at City Hall. At first, Mayor Wren smiled politely, acting confused. Miss Reeves, I appreciate your passion, but I assure you those are just ghost stories, legends. Clara didn't back down. She placed the old photo of Margaret Ravencroft on the table. Next to it, a picture of Wren's grandmother side by side. The resemblance was terrifying. Same sharp chin, same cold eyes. He looked at them. His smile dropped. You need to stop, he said quietly. You've seen too much already. Clara whispered, You're one of them, aren't you? Wren's face went pale. And then he said something she never expected. I was never given a choice. Later that night, Clara met him in private. He finally told the truth. His family had hidden the truth for generations. The Ravencrofts were more than a cult. They were caretakers of something older. Something not born from any religion. A force. Beneath Black Hollow Hill. Mayor Wren explained, They didn't start the fire. The veil did. It rejected their offering. But something still came through. A sliver. A fragment. And now it waits. It wants to be whole. And every Ravencroft born after that night carries a piece of it. Clara asked, Then why haven't you destroyed the place? Ren shook his head. Because we're not allowed. We're its watchers. If we destroy the hill, it will break free. The only way to seal it forever is to finish what they started. Clara realized what he meant. The last offering. The empty chair in the shrine. The burned name in the circle. It was never about revenge. It was about balance. The family had crossed the veil but left one link undone. One thread loose. And now the ritual needed someone to finish the circle. But who? Clara looked at Mayor Ren. He looked back and then whispered, "It's you, isn't it?" Clara ran that night, but this time not to escape. She returned to the Ravencroft house, camera in hand, voice trembling. "I know what you want," she said into the dark. She stepped down into the chapel one last time. The altar was alive now. It breathed, it pulsed, and the circle of chairs? They weren't empty anymore. All 7 wax figures were seated, but one turned its head slowly. Was Clara's face. Her future self? Or something waiting to become her? Suddenly, behind her, Mayor Ren appeared. He had followed her, but this time, he held something in his hand, a blade made of black stone. Ancient, ritualistic. "I won't let it take you," he said. Clara begged him to explain. He replied, "If the final blood isn't yours, it must be mine." He stepped into the circle and stabbed the blade deep into his own heart. The chapel screamed. The air shook. The lights burst. And for one brief second, Clara saw the Ravencroft family whole, again watching in silence. Then they vanished. So did the whispers. And the altar finally stopped breathing. Clara crawled out of the chapel, just as the sun began to rise. The mansion behind her cracked, groaned, and collapsed into the earth-swallowed hole. The veil had been sealed, and she was free. Or so she thought. That night, Clara looked at her camera's final footage, and just before the tape ended, something whispered once more. "You always take what we are owed." Clara Reeves left Black Hollow Hill behind, or so she believed. The mansion had collapsed. The ritual had ended. Mayor Ren was dead, his sacrifice sealing the veil. For the first time in weeks, Clara could breathe without feeling watched. No more whispers. No red symbols. No shadows moving where they shouldn't. She went home. She slept. And for a while, she felt normal. Until the dreams began. At first, they were vague. A cold wind blowing through a circle of trees. A candle that never burned out. A child's voice repeating one word over and over. Return. Then the dreams grew sharper. More real. She stood in the Ravencroft chapel again, only this time, it wasn't ruined. It was clean, alive, full of people in robes. They chanted softly. And in the center stood Clara herself. But she wasn't moving. She was seated in the 7th chair. Eyes open. Mouth sewn shut. Watching. Clara woke with blood on her pillow. She checked her mouth. No injuries. But her reflection in the mirror didn't move when she did. She rushed to her computer and tried to erase all her files. The footage, the documents, the names, everything. But one folder wouldn't delete. Ravencroft remains inside. Were hundreds of images. All of her. Sleeping, filming, running, screening, some. From angles no camera she owned could have captured. One showed her standing over Mayor Ren's body. Smiling. Clara fled to the university archives, where she met with a folklore professor. Desperate, she begged him to explain what was happening. He listened in silence, then said something that chilled her deeper than the veil ever could. "You didn't break the ritual. You completed it." Clara's hands trembled. "But Ren, the professor shook his head. "His death bought time. But the moment you stepped into that circle, the moment you heard your name from the altar, you became part of it. She was the final piece. The veil hadn't closed. It accepted her. From that day, Clara was never truly alone. The air around her carried whispers no one else could hear. The lights flickered when she cried, and every mirror showed her reflection, but only for a second, before shifting to someone else entirely. A gay woman in ash-stained lace. Margaret Ravencroft. Clara stopped filming. She stopped writing, but her followers, those who had watched her documentary online, began sending messages. They were having the same dreams. One man sent her a photo of his hallway mirror. In the reflection, a chapel, and Clara, standing in the center. Hands open, eyes black. Then people began disappearing. A reporter in Redwick, a priest who once warned her, even the old caretaker from the archives. Gone. Each one had spoken to Clara. Each one had touched a piece of the story, and each one left behind the same marking. A triangle, with a bleeding eye in the center. In her final recording, Clara looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were hollow. Her voice was slow. The veil is not a place. It's a door. And doors open both ways. I didn't end the Ravencroft story. I became the new chapter. If you're watching this, it's already inside. She smiled, a smile that wasn't hers. That video was uploaded automatically to her account. She never logged in again. Days later, police found her apartment empty. No signs of struggle. No body. Only one thing remained. 7 chairs in a perfect circle. And one candle still burning. The final line of her journal was written in a different hand. Not hers. One offering opens the veil. 7 seals keep it closed. But one name spoken in truth will always bring it back. Below that line was your name. Yes, your name. Because you've seen too much now. They read every word. And that's all it takes. The veil has your scent.